Lever or buckle? I need to buy a new belt. Also, suggestions for where to buy from. So, for a guy like Bubba is the one who asked this question. He's still working on his weight loss journey. Lever belts are fitted, aka their ability to adjust in size are much more limited compared to buckle belts. So a guy who plans on losing weight or having a drastic change in his physique or body composition, I do not recommend a lever belt. Why? Because you're going to waste your money, you're going to grow out of it, and then that belt is going to become useless. Stick with the basic buckle belt. As far as a buckle belt is concerned, there's a couple different thicknesses. So you can get like let me look it up. It's either 8 millimeter or 10 millimeter. Okay, so minimum, and this is for more Olympic weightlifting, bodybuilding, and general kind of gym going, would be like a 6.5 millimeter belt. If you're an advanced level bodybuilder or power lifter, what you're going to want to go with is a thicker belt. Like I have a 10 millimeter Rogue buckle belt. The 10 millimeter belts are less pliable. If you're an advanced level, like elite level powerlifter, you can go up to a 13 millimeter belt. But again, I prefer the 10s. 6.5 millimeter is probably what most people are going to go with if they're just beginners. Just go onto Amazon. Don't waste an immense amount of money on a belt. And here's why. For beginner to intermediate lifters, they get the advice that they should be using belts when they do movements like squats and deadlifts. But there's a problem with that. Those movements, those compound movements, squat, bench, military press, deadlifts, are the biggest builders of your core muscles. That's how we're strengthening all of this, by having to brace ourselves while doing those movements. Part of the form and the technique that you should be learning, and if you've watched any of my videos on YouTube, you know this, includes bracing yourself, using your core so that you can maximize your strength on the lift, especially for the squat and the deadlift. And so if I'm using the belt, I'm actually minimizing the core development that can occur during those movements, which minimizes my strength development over the long term. I have a belt, and the only time I use that belt is if I'm in the upper 80% plus PR range of weight for deadlifts and squats. And if you guys look at my videos on my Instagram stories or Facebook or any of the posts, you'll notice that most of my lifts are completely raw. I don't use a belt. I try not to use straps, and the reason for that is because I want my body to develop without those. And so anytime you introduce additional equipment like a belt, it's going to minimize the development for that specific area. It's going to become a crutch. That includes belts as well as straps and the grippy things and all that fancy stuff. Now, as far as the differences between the lever and the buckle, the lever is easier, right? It's fitted, you have it set. Yes, you can adjust the lever, and there is like a few inches of play there. But the other thing that you have to be aware of is that I would say that based upon my experience of watching people as well as coaching people, 85% of people over-tighten their belts to the point where it's actually going to potentially create more risk than reward of having that equipment on. Be aware that when you put your belt on in a relaxed position, you should be able to fit 2 fingers down in between that belt and your body. When your body expands as you're going through the movement, and as you breathe in into your diaphragm to brace for that movement, that's what tightens the belt around your body and keeps everything secure. And a lot of times guys who use lever belts, they make the mistake of over tightening them, and what they do is they cinch it way over and end up putting themselves at risk of injury. And just like Coach James says in here, over tightening will lead to injury before it aids the lift. So for somebody who's a beginner, I would honestly just go on Amazon, spend $60-$70 on a nice 6.5 millimeter Harbinger buckle belt. And then from there, get to a place when you start to get to the advanced level, aka more than double your body weight on these lifts. Then you can start moving into a 10 millimeter lever, or start kind of working that stuff and finding what your preferences are. But you don't want to go on there and waste $200-300 on a belt that you're only going to be using once or twice a week anyway. Steve said, thank God someone's saying this. They watch Ronnie Coleman once and see him tighten that bitch down, and they do it. All right.